Inspiring performance. This is one of the things that we know when we are looking at um, holding on to staff, um, inspiring staff, developing staff. These are one of the greatest pieces that we have to look at. But I think one of the things that we want to look at first is ourselves. How are we inspired by our own? What are the things that we look at that inspires us? It allows us to have a place to start when we're thinking of inspiring others. So I'm going to pick on you, Fred. Good morning, Fred. Fred Jiang, are you with us?
Good morning.
How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good. Can you share with us one thing that has inspired you in your career?
One thing inspired me in my career. Work for MTA, a state agency, and that organization is we have good people, good system, it's good to work with the company.
Okay.
That's when I first got hired. That's what,
So when you first got hired, just the fact of working for this particular company is what inspired you to be here.
Yes.
Yes?
That was, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Hugh Brissett, or should I say Hugh and the gang?
Yeah.
Good morning. You're on mute, Hugh.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right,
yes.
Great.
Can you share with us, for you, you can just give us one thing. What is one thing that has inspired you to keep going, to motivate, to inspire your performance?
Me.
You.
I like getting things accomplished. I like when I get a project done. I don't know if you know what I do here. I work in the construction department. So when I get a project done and I see someone very satisfied, I'm very happy. And I am very happy about that.
Good. So can we say when you see results?
Correct.
When you see results, that inspires you for the next thing, for the next project that you're going to have.
Right.
Awesome. Christian Kwashi, tell us about your inspiration, Christian, if you can.
And I'll say that's, just getting up every day inspires me. Just having another day to breathe and being able to, get outside and live life, that inspires me.
Literally, right? And if we look at the world around us, right? Every day we can hear another horrible story. So just having life, that with that vigor that we have, it can be inspiring. For me, I think of the things that have inspired me are maybe some, I won't even say role models, but just looking at some people around me, seeing how they work, seeing how they get their results, similar to Hugh, right? And can look at them and say, okay, that is inspiring and I also can, right? So looking at a person and seeing the way they do their work has been inspiring to me. And at different agencies that I've worked or different companies that I've worked, people have so many different styles of how they do things. So if you can kind of mesh all of that together, that has been inspiring for me. Julio, Cesar, tell us, what has been inspiring for you?
Looking at the pictures of my kids, seeing how grown up they are and where they could be, like, in the future. So that inspires me a lot.
Awesome, right? So the question that I would always ask when I taught operational staff is, why are you here? There's the question of, we're here for a purpose. And many of them would mention their families, their children. The reason for their being inspires them every day to come to work. So all of us will have all of these varied pieces, but yet still we pull from somewhere to inspire our own performance. So when we now have our managers managing others, we want to have a little bit of information about what's inspiring to them. You could possibly be the one that inspires them to perform well. All right, Julio, let's take it to the next slide. So for this workshop, we're going to look at some of the goals, right, that you would like to establish for your teams. We'll look at some of the assessments. One of the assessments is called the 360-degree feedback assessment. I don't know if you guys have ever had to engage in that type of assessment or even privy to it, but we'll talk and break that assessment down a bit. And then creating a performance plan. We're going to take a look at that in this workshop. Good. So for module 1 in inspiring performance, it's about getting started, right? As you can see, performance management is not micromanaging, right? It's not just micromanaging. And I think sometimes people think, in order to manage my staff's performance, I have to be on top of them every minute, and every second. And there may be a staff that needs that, but not always, right? So whether the organization, department, or employee level, the goal of performance management is to make sure all business goals are met in a satisfactory manner. So how can we support our staff so that we can meet the business goals? And then there's a quote here. It says, it is much more difficult to measure non-performance than it is to measure performance, right? So what are we paying attention to most? Are we paying attention to non-performance or to performance? I think most often we give a lot of attention to non-performance. Right, so how can we switch that a little bit? So here we are. What is performance management? Effective management, ensuring proper behavior. What is proper behavior? It's outlined by you, right? And obviously giving, and it says proper, but I would say appropriate training, depending on the task that you're going to have your staff engaging in. Next slide. So how does performance management work? Are we identifying the job's purpose for our staff? Are we ranking priority, or are they ranking their job priorities, task priorities? Do we characterize the standard of performance? And also, are we discussing employee performance and providing feedback? On that last bullet, one of the things that often happens is that when staff are performing and they're doing well, we're good. At that point, we want to give good feedback. When they start doing poorly, we don't want to just sit back and look at the poor performance. We want to hop in and really say, hey, I realized this. Hey, I saw this. And not let it boil over. I think many times when we see things that we don't like, we sit on it. We don't always jump in and say, hey, I noticed this. And it can be frustrating if we don't approach it right away. Next slide, please. So I'm gonna do an activity for all of us. I'm gonna read a short case study, and then I want you guys to help me to discuss why you think these two people have difficulty interacting with one another. And you'll share your feedback live, or you can put it in the chat. So we'll go to the next slide and I'll read the activity. So a little bit of background regarding these two people. So they're two colleagues, Paul and Mary, and they find it difficult to communicate with each other. Under the best of circumstances, they still have difficulty, although they are forced to negotiate because of their job roles. Okay, so here we go. Paul and Mary often meet in a central conference room about the same time, once or twice a week. They come in, they greet each other, they say hello, they sit at the table across from one another, always in these same seats. Paul usually gets upset presenting a scenario or an option on flip charts, and when he asks Mary to respond, he'll get upset because of her response. Most of the time, she just asks to hear more information about the idea that he's proposing. Being prepared for her questions, he sometimes hands her a detailed report and asks that they cover each item individually, one at a time. Mary usually rejects that idea. She doesn't want to go over each item. She wants to talk about the whole project. When Paul starts to explain his views on the subject at hand, Mary often interjects and starts comparing one concept to another. Paul becomes frustrated because he thinks Mary is going off on tangents. When the discussion reaches this point, Mary will tell Paul how he is making her feel, but Paul seems more interested in how he sees the problem. Both Mary and Paul are known among their colleagues as being effective communicators, but for some reason, with each other, they just can't get it right. What do you all think? Give me some of your thoughts just hearing that little snippet. What do you think is happening with Paul and Mary? You can write it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and let us know what you think is happening with Paul and Mary.
It appears there's a disconnect in them. They're not really communicating well. And when Paul wants to run that meeting a certain way, Mary wants to run it very differently. And they can't seem to find that common ground.
Exactly. Thank you, Peter. They can't seem to find common ground. Any other thoughts? Competition. Anthony. That's excellent, right? They could be in these competitive roles, right? Awesome. Anyone else?
Sharon, I also kind of think that no one's listening to the other. So that's communication too, but yeah.
Yes. So the communication is not there because no one is taking the time to listen. Excellent, Sharon. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I'll also chime in. It appears that they are not open to seeing each other's perspectives. As one is interested in knowing more about the detail, the other would like an overview of the task at hand. So it appears that they're just not open to really understanding each other's perspectives.
Exactly. Thanks, Jessica. And literally, when I look at this, I see two people, and as that last note noted, it said they're great communicators with others, but the two of them have a different style of how they communicate. So when they come together, that's where you see the clash. Have you experienced that, any of you? with colleagues or with your staff, that you might have the same goal. You want to get something done. However, your two styles it just does not work together. What did they say? Oil and water, right? It just doesn't match. Have you guys experienced that?
Every single day.
Peter, join me. I can give you a high five on that one. Right? So we experience that where your way that you do things, VC, thank you. The way that you do things, and the way others, it just, for some reason, it just doesn't match. Okay, thank you guys. Cesar, can we get the next slide? Thank you. So in getting started, what we just did, we have to look at who we are, who our staff, what their style is, in order to know how to move forward with them. So here we are at just the basics, talking about performance management. And we have to look at how we're assessing, how we assess ourselves, how we assess our staff, and what is that evaluation process. It's not good enough to just implement an effective program, but we also have to measure the successes. We start a program, we think we're doing great. However, we're not getting feedback from the staff to know, hey, this is not working, right? So we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot. So this in turn will allow us to see where modifications need to be held. And another quote here, the greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. Okay, thank you, Vivian, we understand.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are looking at assessments, right? So here are some of the assessments that we just mentioned briefly in the very beginning. There are pre-screenings, there are 60-degree reviews, and there are knowledge assessments, and we are going to go through those types of assessments. So the performance reviews, right? Our assessment helps us to prepare, it helps us to prioritize, it helps us to get clarity and expectations. It helps us to explain performance, provide feedback, as well as to set goals and to follow them up. I have a manager that I worked with in the past that would say, work backwards. Set the goal first and then work backwards. It helps you to identify what needs to be done, right? And that was that person's style of how they did their own performance management. And that worked, and it worked in that setting. Will that always work? Perhaps not. But when you know what goal you want to reach, it is a good place to look at, what do I need to get there? Okay, next slide, Cesar. Coaching. So you will encounter staff who some will ask for coaching, some will require coaching but not know it, and some you might just want to implement that as an additional piece to them. So let me ask you all, how important do you think coaching is for your staff or for yourself? Willie Jenkins, how important is coaching for you? Or not, right?
I think coaching is very important, especially for my staff. I tend to view coaching as, instead of telling them how to do something, but instead asking questions of them so that they could arrive at the answer for themselves, so that the next time they run into a similar problem, that they will be able to solve the issue on their own.
I like that. Thank you. I like that. Right? So coaching helps people to find the answers on their own, but it's a guidance that helps them get there, right? Valerie, for you, how important do you think coaching is for you or for your staff?
It's very important. It's good to have a guide to show how something should be or should not be done.
Yes, yes. I think one grand part of having a coach is that we often have a perception of who we are and how we do things. And the coach is in such a place where they have the ability to help us really see who we are and how we do, right? Outside of our own perceptions, right? So coaching, I believe, can be very helpful. However, what I do know is whoever you would say, please engage in coaching, they have to be open to it. If they're not open to it, oftentimes the process does not work, right? Because you have to be open to receiving feedback. Okay, so in coaching, we coach an employee on how to answer the phone. So I am going to ask, this is a quick exercise. Nicole Headley, good morning. Nicole, are you with us?
Yes.
Hey, good morning, Nicole. How are you?
I'm well.
Good. Nicole, can you coach me on how to answer a phone, please?
You answer the phone, you greet the person, and you try to inquire, you inquire on what they're calling about and try to help them.
So I answer the phone. Oh, what was the next step? I'm so sorry.
You greet the person, you inquire what they're calling for, and you try to help them.
Greet person, inquire what they're calling for, and try to help. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Nicole. I'm going to ask Ashley, can you help me out? Coach me on how to answer a phone.
Sure. I would ask the person to greet them, identify themselves, identify the department that they're calling from, and allow the caller to present what they're calling for. And if needed, redirect the person if it's something that they can't help them with.
If needed, redirect. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to get one more and then I'll tell you guys why I asked. Chris, can you help me, coach me how to answer a phone? Chris Fry, are you with us? Okay, I'll come back to Chris. Alonzo Marshall, can you help me? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you coach me on how to answer a phone?
Yes. First, you greet the person, answer the phone. You announce yourself. Tell them who you are, and then you ask them for the name, and then you inquire what they're calling about and how could you help them. And then you take it from there. If it's something to help them with, you help them with. If something you can't, then you redirect them to somebody for the system. Okay. So be very pleasant, professional, and courteous and helpful with them.
Okay. So 3 people I asked to help me how to answer a phone, and they all 3 gave similar and good instructions on how to answer a phone. Did any one of them ask me any questions?
No.
Do you think when you're coaching someone, it's good to ask them questions? What type of calls do you receive? You know, right? The coaching, we often think, I'm just going to give you the answer. But in coaching, one of the first things that you want to do is you meet with the person and you start asking some questions before you just give them all of the answers. You guys with me?
Yep.
Yes. So in coaching, we don't just give the answers. We kind of delve in with the person a little bit first, ask them questions. So what department do you work for and what types of calls do you get? Right? Who is your customer? Right? So you have to kind of prepare with who is that individual person, what are they managing, and then you can help them to get through. Coaching is not just giving the answer. Okay, pick someone else. Coaching an employee who has been employed for 10 years and feel like his or her accomplishments are ignored. And I am gonna ask Sharon. Sharon, could you coach me? I am this employee. I've been working at the MTA for 10 years, and I feel like my accomplishments have been ignored. Can you start coaching me?
I'll first ask why specifically, why do you feel that way? So that I can figure out how I'm gonna coach them and work from there.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Sharon. George. Is Astoma? Thanks, George. Good morning. Can you coach me? I'm this 10-year-long employee, and I feel like I'm being ignored. My accomplishments are being ignored.
Take you to the side to make sure that you're so you feel more comfortable. And then I would ask you to explain exactly what's bothering you. Why is it, you know,
George, I know you are saying some great stuff, but I think our connection is very poor, so we can't hear all the great stuff you're sharing with us.
Oh, no.
So sorry, George. I heard comfortable. I heard so that you can identify what I hear that you're asking questions, but it's not clear. I'm so sorry, George. I couldn't hear you. Yes, please. Thank you. We appreciate that. Sharon, that's awesome. So for question 1, I got great feedback here from Sharon. And Sharon would have asked the employee to show her how they actually answer the phone currently. I love that. Right? So you see what they're doing so that you can work off of that. Sharon, that's great. And George is putting in his, he would take them to a private room so that they could have the discussion. Awesome. I know he said he would try to make them feel comfortable in having this conversation with them. So just remember, your staff may be looking to you for coaching. It doesn't mean they're looking to you to provide all the answers. It just means they may want some feedback from you on how they're doing something currently, or if you're coming to them directly with the feedback so that they can see how they can adjust what they're doing or continue what they're doing. Next slide, please, Cesar. Thank you. So as we are coaching and as we are leading our staff, one of the things that we often look at are the goals that we are setting for them. And in coaching, they always talk about the SMART goal and how we need the goal that we're setting to be specific, to be measurable, to be attainable, to be realistic, and to be timely. So oftentimes you hear people say, oh my gosh, that person, they just set this other person up for failure, right? When you have the SMART goal, it should always be successful, right? Because you're able to use all of the acronym in order to get it to the goal. So next slide, please, Cesar. So with the SMART goal, you want to ensure that when you have the general goal, it's always, we're looking at improving performance, right? If the performance is already good, you want to maintain the performance. But then when you're looking at specific goals, you could do an example of meet with your mentor once a week. So that is something that you can measure. So you can say in 1 month, your staff met with their mentor 4 times a month, right? Something that is measurable when you're looking at goals. Next slide, please, Cesar. So examples of measurable goals are increased sales, increased numbers, or increased attendance, right? And measurable goals, we can look at increasing the attendance by a percentage, increasing the attendance by a number, increasing sales by a percentage, and so on. So always looking at how can we have a quantifiable measure on the goals. So moving over to module 3 and continuing to establish performance. Performance goals require strategic action to be effective. These goals should not be handed down to the employee, which we talked about. It's important to include the employee in the goal setting process and encourage them to meet their individual performance goals. This will provide individual and company performance, right? And the quote, performance is your reality. Forget everything else. Do you think that our staff forget everything else? No, right? Everything else comes with us, right? Every day. But performance, obviously, for us as an organization is key. Yes, Julio, next slide, please. So we want our performance planning to be strategic, right? We want to always plan before making goals, right? You're sitting down and saying, this is what, where we want to go. These are the resources that we have. This is how we will utilize the resources. And then this is how we'll make it to the goal, right? So in strategic planning, we're looking at where we want to go. We're looking at the steps we will take. What is that journey to get there? And then we're looking at the values of the team, the department, and obviously the organization. So here we are, and we look at the job analysis. We look at it for ourselves, right? And then obviously our staff are looking at their job analysis. They're looking at what is the required skill to get this strategic plan done, and do I have that skill? It helps us to determine who we hire, and it helps us to determine who we put in place with specific projects. Now, I wouldn't place myself to change my own car tire. I don't have that skill, right? I am going to look for the person who can change that for me, right? So I'm looking to get in place that person who has that skill. And that's the same thing that we need to do when we are planning within our teams. Everyone will not always have the same skill, but you will be able to identify who has the skill that you need. And then you look at, how will I train, right? We always talk about succession planning. If everyone walks out of the door, what happens? But when one person walks out of the door and you still have a team, how have they been cross-trained so that you're not left without your task and responsibilities being covered? Next slide, please. So we are setting goals. We're looking at behaviors. We're looking at competency, and we're looking at results. With behavior, what often we see is that people mistake feelings with behaviors, right? So we always want to identify behavior as something that you can identify, and feelings are what we feel, what we think of the behavior, right? And then we're looking at the competencies. When you think of competency, when you hear the word, what are you thinking of? You can either put it in the chat or you can just unmute and let me know. When you think of the word competency.
To complete a task in a professional.
Sorry, who was speaking? Caesar?
I think that was George.
Peter? Is that George?
Peter.
Oh, Peter, sorry.
Can you repeat? I'm so sorry. We'll try to hear you again.
Of course. It's the ability to complete a task in a professional and timely manner.
Yes, yes. Successful performance, right? The ability to apply or use knowledge and skills to get to the successful performance. Okay. And then results. When you guys hear results, what do you hear? That's our guy, Hugh. Hugh is the results guy, right? Satisfactory outcomes, right? That's what we're looking at. When we say results, we're looking at something that is satisfactory, met the need, met our goal. Okay, next slide, please. So what are the motivations? Here we go. This was a question that I asked at the very beginning, right? What are our motivations? Right? Why are we here? Why are we doing the work? The paycheck, yes, okay, we got to pay the bills, we know. But outside of that, why are we here? If we are not strategic, and if we are not focused on the goal, our staff see that. You guys believe? Saying anything? I'm waiting for some responses.
Yes, I agree with that.
Thank you, Cesar. Yeah. So as a manager, if you are not motivated, do you think your staff will be motivated?
No, not at all.
They won't
Follow
be.
the leader.
They follow the leader.
Yep.
Yeah, follow the leader. So this first bullet says, lead by example. Will everybody always follow? No. But at the end of the day, you can say, I led by example. these were my expectations, and this is how I set forward, and some followed, some did not, right? You want to be able to meet with your staff. How many of you, some of you on here have multiple staff, that you are not able to meet with them individually always, but you want to, even if in groups, even on Teams calls, to check in with your teams, to meet with them, to see where they are, what their thoughts are, and what's happening. At the end of the day, we are all human, right? Reward our employees. Now, we know rewarding without budgets is hard, but we have to think of creative ways. And oftentimes just to step on a call similar to this to say, hey, Sharon, you did a great job. Christian, wonderful. Thank you for just being so invested in what you did. Sometimes just to hear your name and to hear that your manager acknowledges your hard work can be enough. Right? You want to delegate, right? And motivating, you know who your champions are on your teams. And oftentimes those champions, you know what we do? We wear them down. We wear down our champions on our teams because we know they're hard workers, they're dedicated, and you can count on them. But we want to not, right, bog them down always and start delegating to some other folks on our teams. We want to inform, right? We want to be informed, and we want to inform. So as much information that we get that we can always share with our staff, we want to share with them as much as possible. Even on my own teams, I have staff who will say, but Janice, you never told me. And I'm like, I didn't? Oh my God, I apologize. Let me send this to you now. This is the information I got on this day about this project, and this is where we're moving with it. So giving your teams information is very important for them to feel like they're a part of the process. They're a part of the wins that are happening across the organization. And celebrate, right? Celebrate when people are leaving you. Celebrate, that's for their growth. Celebrate when people are coming to you, right? Celebrate. Find moments. Is it Christian, I think, has said, just life, right? Find moments that we can celebrate because we know the work that we do. We can just keep going always. And sometimes I say, I can go through the whole day and not having gone to the restroom. And I'm like, oh my God, get up and go to the restroom. You can't just do work. So you have to find times for the things that are important for you, as well as things that are important for your staff. Next slide, please. So the 360-degree feedback. Let me ask, has anybody on the call ever experienced a 360-degree assessment or was a part of one, had to do one for someone else? Any one of you on the call ever had to do?
I had to do one for my manager, but that was like 20 plus years ago.
Okay, do you remember at all like what it all encompassed? I know it's a long time ago. Do you remember it all?
I only remember that they asked me certain questions about my manager, and then she had received a comprehensive like summary of of the people that reported to her, as well as her peers, as well as her manager, and she was very happy with the feedback that she got. It's because we gave her very positive feedback on her management style.
Okay. Okay. So and I want you guys to ask yourselves this, right? Because this is how the 360-degree, you sit in your role, the persons who report to you do an assessment of you and your style of management. Your colleagues, the people who sit side by side, they do an assessment. Your manager does an assessment, and then they choose a random person who you may not know where they sit in the organization to do an assessment of you. And most often they're anonymous. And so you have people that are all around you. That's why they call it the 360-degree feedback, that give you feedback about who you are in your role, what they think of your style of management, and they also give you feedback on what they think you should improve or what you should continue to do. A lot of people like this method of feedback. So oftentimes when you get assessments, it's from your manager as opposed to from all of the different angles. So this feedback could be very useful. So as you can see here, it says it's useful for evaluating performance. It provides evaluation from different sources to paint a clear picture of how well an individual performs, identifying strengths and weaknesses, and it will allow employees to continue to improve how they perform. So it's like you looking in a mirror and getting the feedback from your peers. And Ken Blanchard shares feedback is the breakfast of champions. Oftentimes when I've taught this particular course, it's a course that you teach before you can embed the 360 within an organization. And the first question that they always ask the individual people who are going to engage in this is, tell us what you think about yourself. And what they do is they take those thoughts, and at the end of the evaluation, they sit it next to one another to see if what you think about yourself and what your colleagues actually said, if it aligns, or if they're totally different. And oftentimes they're very different. So it gives you a clear picture of what you think about yourself and what other people actually see. Okay, next one. So it's anonymous, it's peers and management, and it's a self-evaluation. Okay, next one. So managers use the 360 because it gives a better picture of performance. So you could say for a staff or a group of staff that you have, that you want them to engage in a 360. So let their peers tell them how they think that they are performing, as opposed to you utilizing it for your own performance. And so your staff can get a clear picture from all around them how they are performing. Oftentimes people think it seems more fair when the 360 is disseminated, and it encourages cooperation, right? So everybody has to be, they encourage honesty in the assessment. Okay, next slide, please. So in the 360, they give you questions, and the questions are scaled from 1 to 10. So people are choosing, hey, what do you think about Peter's ability to manage conflict, from the scale of 1 to 10? And so your colleagues will then choose. So a lot of it is not people's own thoughts that they're putting. It is a scaled questioning that everyone gets. There is a section at the end for comments, and then the scores are tallied and averaged. Caesar, can you let in Mina into the room? She's waiting. Okay. Next slide, please. and Module 5 and some other competency assessments other than 360. We know they're all essential to performance management. The assessments make it easier to hire and promote the right people. They also help us to assess performance from different competencies that employees need to improve. It will also identify the top performers. Literally thinking of when you have a job available, you make a job posting. In that job posting, you are saying, these are the skills that I need this person to have. This is the experience that I would like this person to have. So in our competency and our assessment, it's the same thing. It's like pulling this job posting and you're saying, this person is actually sitting in this role. Do they have the skills? Are they utilizing the skills to do this job? Right? So assessments are very important, especially when you need that support, when you're having difficulty with a staff member, and you want to be able to share with them, hey, this is why I'm saying this. This came not just from me, but this came also from an assessment. Okay, and Dr. Lawrence Peter says competence, like truth, beauty, and contact lenses, is in the eye of the beholder. Okay, great quote. Next one. Competency assessment defined looks at skills, looks at knowledge. Both the skill and the knowledge we know are necessary to perform jobs well. What do you think? Other than skills and knowledge, what are your thoughts that your staff need to perform their job well?
They would need the tools, certain tools in order to complete their job, such as technology systems, whether it be certain reports or even other resources such as engaging with their colleagues. So basically resources and tools in order to perform their job well.
Thanks, Jessica. Anybody else? Other than skills and knowledge, essential knowledge, what are other things that your staff need to perform their job well?
I would add training is.
I heard the person saying training. Keep going.
Yes, training. Yes, training basically. Yes, that's what I have.
Training is essential. Yes, yes. Who else? Someone else was trying to speak at the same time. I couldn't see who.
No, I was
feedback.
Feedback. I'm going along thinking I'm doing really great. If you don't give me the feedback to tell me, oh, right, Janice, definitely. Exactly. Feedback is needed. What else?
Along with the training and feedback, needs support, knowing that you're there to support them.
They need support. They need support. Yes. Anything else? What else do our staff need? I think in the feedback. Sorry?
They need a direction.
They need direction, which could come in the feedback, right? They need direction, exactly. Right? They need to know what the expectations are, right? So if they don't know what's expected of them, how will they utilize the skill? How will they utilize the knowledge, right? Training, great. Resources, great. Reports are great. Technology to support them, and then the support that people often need. Do they need, what what's the word? Where do I want to go? I'm looking at discipline when errors are made. Is that needed?
It depends on the severity of errors and whether they continue to make the same errors.
So corrective measures, right, are needed also as well. Definitely depends on what the errors are. I agree. Okay. An outline, Brittany, is that you saying an outline earlier? Somebody said adequate rest. Oh my gosh, yes. PPE, yes, 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 yes. Understanding of task. Wow, really good. Thank you, guys. Next slide, please, Cesar. Implementation. So here we are. We've set the goals, we've set the standards, they know what's expected, and now is implementation. So we have to identify the competencies. We continue to develop on the assessments, right? We have to practice the assessment, implement the assessment, and continue to plan. Practicing is important, even for somebody who's been here for 20, 30 plus years. It is still important. Next slide, please. And then the final destination and talking about the goal, right? Where do we want to be? So we will have a person who said training is essential, right? We will have trained professionals. We would have strong performance, and it will be unique to the MTA. Can that person leave the MTA and take those skills and still be successful elsewhere? Yes, but we do know that most often what we train and the skills that are acquired are specific to the agency and or the department. I have done training, I said, for operational staff. Could that be the same training that I would utilize for you? No. Would that be helpful for you in this particular role that you have? No, right? So it has to be unique to the task. It has to be unique to the team, to the department, and or to the organization. Okay, next slide, please. So Cesar, you have this for us. I don't know if you already have it in, or if they can just put the answers in the chat if you don't have it in the poll already.
Yeah, let's do the chat answers.
Okay. Okay, so everyone, if you do us a favor and you can just do in the chat 1, A, if that's your answer, 2, B, if that's your answer, 3, please answer these 4 questions in the chat.
Thank you. If you want, I can read them off as well.
That's fine, I think. Is everybody okay with seeing them on your own, or do you need Cesar to read them? I think folks are okay. Valerie, thank you for your answers. I see them coming in. Hey, everyone, can you please put your answers in the chat for us?
Thank you, Sharon. Ashley, 4. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Willie. Like Ashley said, the last question, number 4, all of the above. Managers need
Awesome.
blank
Awesome.
competency assessments.
Hey. And I think there are a few more questions.
There's
Let's go
yeah,
to
there's
the,
like 2
can,
more, I think.
okay, can we go to the next slide and see those? Yes. Okay. What will determine the final destination for each company? And then 6 goals and blank must be identified for a final destination. The final destination is just where we want to end up. What are the goals that we want to achieve? So you guys have entered your answers in the chat. And as you can see, some of the areas you look at and you're like, oh, absolutely all of them. Let's just see what the answer key shares. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is the answer key. We're gonna call it an honor system here, and you guys look at your answers, and if you have any questions as to why it may be different than your answer, we can discuss. Number 1, who assesses competencies besides the supervisor? So we don't want our colleagues to assess our competency, right? They can give us feedback, but we don't want them to be the ones assessing. And obviously, Jano doesn't have time to assess our competency, right? So we're looking at HR. Number 2, which is generally not an assessment rating. Minutes to hours, we know is not an assessment rating. What part of competency assessment helps employees to improve the action plan, right? What is happening after? What is happening next is the action plan. Managers need to practice, right? Using competency assessments. And what we know, they say, if I do something 10 times, then I have it. The next slide, please.
I got a question on one real quick before we go. So it says HR, right? And if you have a highly technical position, how does HR at a general skill level understand what that technical competency would amount to?
So this is where you're having conversations with your HR partners, right? As to what the expectations are. And again, this happens very early on. It happens when I talk about in the recruitment, right? What are the competencies you need for that particular job in that skill? Sometimes you inherit staff who you don't have a part in that recruitment process, and we understand that, but still the job requirements helps you to identify what are the competencies needed in that particular role. So you don't want your colleague to be a part of
that role process. But I was just thinking about how I think I understand what it is. It's not for the in-depth understanding of the position itself. It's more for the competency of understanding if you can, I don't want to say too much like relate, but if you can, fit in with the organizational culture. I mean, I think that's what it really boils down to, because I mean, if you really ask about competency in a technical aspect, I'm not too sure an HR personnel would be able to do that.
I agree.
They had the amount of years experience doing that technical work, or
I do agree.
Right. Okay.
I do agree.
All right. Just wanted to clear it up a little for myself. All right. Thank you.
I do agree. Thank you. All righty. And then what will determine the final destination for each company? Goals and needs. And then goals, and you guys said all, and I agree, right? Goals and expectations. We talked about that. The actual talent, right? All of those play the part. Competencies and motivations. So I agree with you all that all of those for number 6, A, B, C, and D could be identified for the final destination. Right. Module 6, Kolb's learning cycle, right? This is another theory that we're looking at when it comes to assessments and learning and reaching goals. This learning cycle has 4 basic elements. It looks at someone's experience. It looks at observation. It looks at conceptualization and experimentation. It's important to be familiar with the learning cycle to effectively manage performance and guide employees to greater achievements. And August Rodin says, nothing is a waste of time if you use experience wisely. Okay. Julio says we're taking a break. So we are talking about experience, direct experience, involves senses, not just simply knowledge, and hands-on training. When we say knowledge, we always say, oh, this person either has or doesn't have the knowledge. Give me a definition of knowledge, somebody, without Google. Someone share with me your definition of knowledge.
Information that directly relates to a job task or a procedure. Excellent.
Information related to, right, what job they have, right? So I can have knowledge that has nothing to do with the job. Am I knowledgeable in that job? No, right? Has to be aligned with the job or tasks or responsibilities that we are asking of our staff. So great. So next slide, please. We'll look at some more information in regards to knowledge. We're talking about observation, what the experience means, that knowledge is being transferred into meaning, and then ways to transform knowledge. Let me see what the next slide is. Okay, so I'm still on the knowledge slides. I'll go back. Can you go back one, Cesar? I'm sorry. When we're talking about transferring knowledge, can you guys share with me some ways that you believe you transfer knowledge to your staff? What are some ways?
You can include your staff on meetings.
Okay.
Upper level meeting. You bring them in so that they can get experience.
Good.
And information.
Good. Excellent. Other ways of transferring knowledge to your staff?
Could be through trial and error. So you have knowledge and you apply it and you observe what works and doesn't work, and then you relay that information to your employees or your peers. Excellent.
Brittany, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? I'll just take one more. Ways of transferring knowledge. So we know mentorship is one, right? So as we mentor, and sometimes you can be a mentor and not know it, right? As we sit in the seat, in the management seat, you could be mentoring, and through that mentorship, you could be transferring knowledge. Another area is simulation, right? Simulation are ways to transfer knowledge. Work shadowing, right? When you put a new employee to sit with somebody who has been here for some time, you are asking for the transfer of knowledge, right? Through shadowing or paired work. Or if it's not a new employee and two employees been here for around the same time and you pair them, they are able to share knowledge between one another. And somebody said earlier, through training, right? Knowledge is also shared through training and in many instances through e-learning, right? So knowledge, we hold on to the things that we need for the position, but there are opportunities and times where we do have to transfer that knowledge to someone else. The next slide, please. Conceptualization. Here we are gathering knowledge without direct experience, right? Talking about theories, things that theoretically could happen, could work, right? And then we apply logic to a basic understanding of those things. Next slide. Someone said it just a few minutes ago, right? Experimentation. Learning to do, learning by doing, acting on the knowledge that you have. And in experimentation, we are taking risks, right? The risk that it will work and the risk that it may not. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Quickly, are we able to do this one in a poll, Caesar?
Yes.
Okay, so Caesar is going to put a poll up and we'll ask that you complete that poll for us, please, with these very same questions.
All right, closing the polls.
Okay, Caesar, you can start reading what we have so far.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what is a method for gaining knowledge? Most of you said experience. Second choice was observation and learning were tied, and experimentation was the last. Second question is concrete experience involves blank, and most of you said observation, followed by books and senses, and feelings got 0%. Number three was, what is a method for transforming knowledge? And most of you said reflective observation, followed by concrete experience, where books and senses did not meet the match there. Number four is knowledge is transferred to blank. Experience was the top answer, followed by meaning, and senses, feelings were out of the way. And well, five is what is a way to gain knowledge without direct experience? And most of you said abstract conceptualization, followed by reflective observation, then concrete and abstract observation conceptualization were a tie there. And number six, once again, there you go. Number six, how does abstract conceptualization work? And the most of you said watching interprets, followed by experience, and feelings was the last. Oh, logic and then feelings. And
thank you everyone for all of your input.
All right. Close this up.
Thank you, Cesar. Let's go and see what the responses are. Okay, any thoughts on the responses that the module gives? Many of these can be dual, right? Many of the responses, how we all teach and how we all learn is very different. Right, so you could have different responses than this, and that does not mean it is incorrect. Okay, thank you. Yes.
I had a question. Then what would be the difference between the abstract conceptualization and the observation?
So conceptually, that's where you are just thinking about the process. The observation is where you're seeing it happening in front of you. It could be a task, it could be something that is actually happening, and you have the ability to see it happening, as opposed to just thinking how it would come out.
And you can you start like that? That could be also like the steps. Like you start with conceptualization, and then you end up observing it and reflecting.
End up with your observation. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. If no other questions, let's go to the next. Okay, module 7, motivation. This is a grand one. I think in every area of our lives and definitely of our work, motivation is very important. Every employee, I think they value motivation. Not just need it, but value it in order to be successful. While employees must take responsibility in motivating themselves, right? Just like we have to in motivating ourselves, management can help motivate and develop individuals. Practicing basic motivational techniques will improve performance as it boosts morale. Do you guys agree? Practicing motivational techniques will improve?
Absolutely.
Joyce?
Happy people work well.
Happy people work well. They offer up a little bit more of themselves, right? Joyce Locke says, build upon strengths and weaknesses will gradually take care of themselves. We often pay so much attention to the negative, but if we understand that paying attention to the things that are happening well, that your staff who are doing well, the weaknesses begin to fall off. Okay, next slide, please. Some key factors in when we're looking at motivation: responsibility, the nature of the work, recognition, and achievement. Next, please. So this is the motivation organization. Most often you will hear people say the reason that they've done stuff first and foremost is because of their most personal, most closest thing to them, their family. Then you'll see this cycle here, right? Personal time, environment, community, success. Is there anything on here that you do not agree with? Or may not be as important to you, that maybe you may not have on your cycle of motivation? guess we're all on the same page then. Let's go to the next slide, Caesar. Thank you. So we have to identify what are our personal motivators, right? Each person is different. We observe and we observe differently. We communicate and we survey. Let me ask everyone a question, because they always talk about, if you don't know about the organization's values and mission, how can you move forward? Can anybody, without Google, tell me the MTA mission and or vision? Don't Google it, just share it with me. Somebody get off of mute and share me. What is the MTA vision mission?
To provide safe and quality on-time service to the public.
Excellent, excellent. Dawn, great job. Anybody else? Anything to add? MTA mission? Right, oftentimes this is where we take what we're going to utilize as the motivator. We start with the organization's mission, vision, values. You take a look at that and see, do we align with that? Does our department align with that? And then you're building your motivators through that, right? So I did Google, right? And I'm looking at preserves and enhances the quality of life and economic health of the region of which it serves through the cost-efficient provision of safe, on-time, reliable, and clean transportation services. How do we take that, identify the work that we do, and continue pushing as our motivators? We know that we're all different. We know that we're all motivated by different things in our lives, right? How do we communicate what our motivators are? Do we have to communicate what they are? Because if I'm working in the way that I should, do I need to communicate what my motivators are? Probably not. And then we continue to survey so that we can see what's happening in our areas. Next slide, please. Evaluating and adapting. When we do surveys, we'll show the level of engagement. We'll compare the mission, the policies, and the procedures to our internal motivators. We'll examine the number of employees who have advanced under our own leadership, right? So I think sometimes people might see an employee who works with them and for them. When this employee says, you know what, I want to grow, I want to have another position, I'm looking for a promotion, some people might see that as something negative when it's not. This person under your leadership has grown, has shown that they have the ability to move up levels, and that could be accredited to your great management style or your what? Poor management style, right? But how about if this person is saying, because of what my manager modeled for me, I know now I also am able to manage a team and manage it greatly, right? So when your team members are saying to you, I want to grow, I want to move on, I want to look at it as something positive and not something negative. And try to see if you can support them in reaching their next steps and their next goals. I know we're often worried about leaving ourselves undone or having gaps in our organization, but things do work itself out. Okay, next slide, please. I'm gonna skip this. Did you have this on a poll? I'm gonna skip these review questions just because of time. Next one, please. Next. Okay. Module 8. These modules are very long, you guys, so I'm just kind of skipping over some of those review questions. Okay, module 8, the performance journal. Does anybody on this call this morning, does anybody journal for professional or personal? If you mind sharing.
I do.
Brittany, yes. And do you mind sharing the purpose behind the journaling?
Oh, yes. So for me, when I'm journaling, even if it's work goals, personal goals, any of that sort, putting it down on paper kind of gives my head a visual of what I'm looking at, and I can go from there and what I deem more important, less important, and how I can kind of branch off from those ideas.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. Is there anyone else who journals? And I think for me, I don't journal, but I have lists of things that I want to accomplish, right? So it's, I wouldn't call it a journal, but it kind of allows me to stay focused to what I need to get done, whether it's personal or for work. Is there anyone else who journals in any way, shape, or form? Brittany, I think it's just you and me.
No, I journal too, but I just kind of I do journal with personal goals and how I'm getting there, and I guess that kind of goes in line with my vision board and stuff like that.
Yes, yes, that vision board and that stuff works. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And I think when people think journaling, they might think, oh, it's something cheesy or it's something, but it truly helps to guide you. This is where I want to go. This is where I have to go to get there. And like Brittany said, just seeing it, right? Writing it, seeing it helps to just reinforce what's happening for you. Thanks, Sharon, for sharing that with us. So the performance journal creates evaluations that are more accurate by allowing employees and managers to keep track of performance throughout the year. This will help guide and develop employees who challenge themselves and improve in performance. Get out of the way. And so we have record goals and accomplishments, right? So are we doing this? Are we identifying accomplishments? Are we identifying things that we would reward our staff for? As the employer, are we documenting? Are we as well documenting where performance gaps are? Because that is how you're able to now identify how you will support someone. There's a gap here, so now I can support you through to get past this gap, right? So recording these goals and accomplishments are very important. Next slide. Employees and managers need to be, this needs to get done, right? It should say to be effective. Remain professional and have accurate evaluations. Because you like someone, do you evaluate them differently than someone that maybe you and them don't have quite a relationship? Let me hear some truths here. Share with me, please. Do you evaluate differently somebody that you have a relationship with, that you like very much, as opposed to someone who you don't have a relationship with whatsoever?
No, you evaluate them the same, because work is work, business is business.
That's right.
Anyone else?
Shouldn't, but I know sometimes you do.
You just gotta set boundaries sometimes to just make them aware that we're friends, we're cool. But when it comes to doing business, I mean, if you're a friend, you shouldn't be doing something wrong to your colleague who's your boss, or in that case. But
Yes.
you just gotta set that boundaries beforehand, so nobody's no hard feelings.
So the nature of humanity is, if I have a relationship and a good relationship with you, the way I evaluate you will be a little less stringent than the way I evaluate others. It's just the nature of human beings, right? What we have to try to do, just like you said, is to set those boundaries and try our very best to be fair and evaluate on the same level. Removing feelings of friendship and, whatever those feelings may be, we have to be able to evaluate fairly. One thing, when you do have good relationships or close relationships with your staff, it's very good. However, those are the times that if something goes wrong, you may be a little hesitant to be critical, or you may be a little hesitant to say, this wasn't done correctly. So you have to ensure that we are being fair, that we are evaluating the same for everyone. Okay, next slide, please. Hey, quick fingers there, Cesar. You even lost me for a moment. Okay.
Sorry.
Implementing a performance coach, right? We talked about coaching a little bit earlier, assessing skills and knowledge, assessing the tools, assessing the processes. I think that's always one of the big things for us are what are processes changing? Are we able to change along with them? And the last bullet, to assess motivations. Next slide, please. This coaching slide should have been back in our coaching area. Okay. Keeping track is traditional evaluations, 360 feedback, journals, performance logs. Out of these 4, which one do you prefer? Put it in the chat for me, please. Choose one. Traditional evaluations, 360 feedback, journals, or performance logs. Share with us in the chat, please.
Can you explain the 360 feedback?
Who am I speaking with? Jessica?
Yes.
Yes. So we did a segment on 360 feedback. I'll just give you a short and brief. So the 360 is when, for instance, if it's for you, the people evaluating you would be the staff that report to you, would be your colleagues that sit side by side, you, and then your manager, and then one random person. And they all would be evaluating you and then giving you that feedback, and you take that to now create your new plan on how you could improve.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you had to choose one, which one would you think you would utilize most or best? I see traditional, I see 360, I see performance logs, I see feedback, 360, 360. Folks love 360. Did we get everyone on here? We're missing some folks. Give us which one? Just choose one, guys. Which one would you choose? You're missing a few folks. Just type it in the chat for us. Thank you. Traditional and 360, I'm seeing a lot of those. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Next slide, please, Caesar. We're going to utilize that information to see what we can send back to you all. Next. Okay. After we have done assessments, after we've identified our goals, we have our knowledge, we want to now create what we would call the performance plan, right? The performance plan is essential to performance management. It is a strategic plan that each individual needs to follow to become high-performing employees. Managers must create a plan with each employee that they work with. There's always room for improvement. Question, are you guys doing this? I know that I get the performance plan emails that come that tell me, hey, Janice, you need to create the performance plan and upload it. Have you guys been doing your performance plans? No, mine comes from Joel Andrews. I think Joel Andrews is the one that sends our performance plan emails out to us. I'm not sure if you guys also receive those, but it's so that you can do performance plans for yourself and your team. Do you guys receive those? Just give me a yes, a thumbs up, a no. We don't get those.
Yes, Jessica says yes.
Okay, thanks, Jess. Thanks, Jessica.
Ashley said yes.
Okay. You just want to know that you're also receiving those because I know it's new to the organization as a part of, it's not new to the organization, but agency-wide that it's happening, that we all should be engaging in performance plans. And then that quote down there says, he who fails to plan plans to fail. I've heard that before. And here in those performance plans, you should be looking at what some of the goals are for your staff, determining what employees need to accomplish, ensuring that your goals are SMART goals, allowing employees to develop the goals with you. Just like coaching, you want to do it together, right? I could say, hey, I have 8 staff. These are your goals, get them done. And then they'd be looking at me like, okay, shouldn't we be a part of identifying what some of these goals are? We can have an overarching plan or goal, but you want to include your staff in drawing that plan. Okay, next slide, please. What are your expectations? What are your desired results? What do you expect your staff to achieve, right? That is what you are putting in. Sometimes people say, well, I didn't know what you expected, right? We don't want our staff saying that. We want them to be able to say, hey, I met with my manager on these 3 occasions and they outlined exactly what was expected of me. We want to be able to hold people accountable. How can we do that? When we are clear about what's expected. So we want our employees to be responsible. And then if they don't have the ability to reach those goals, then we could implement coaching to be able to be supportive for them. Okay, next, please. Prioritization. We want to be able to identify priorities. In our world, the world that we live in, every day something is a priority. Every day priorities change. And we may give our staff tasks to do and say, it's a priority. And then within the next 3 hours, we're heading back to them with saying, okay, stop that and do this. This is the priority, right? That's just the world that we're in. But we have to be clear. Hey, yes, I gave you this earlier, but now this next supersedes what I gave you earlier. So please, could we finish that? And it can be frustrated sometimes for staff who were not having consistent communication so they can understand the nature of the work and how it's passed down. So top 3 goals, aligning hopefully with the company's goals, and make sure that we're not conflictual with one another. Any questions about prioritization before we jump to measure? Any questions or statements? Okay, when we come to measure, we want to ensure that they're fair standards. And this says make the measurements cost specific. And I don't know if in our business, if this sits true for us. All of our measures may not have to be cost specific, and create rating scales, right? What works for you? Everybody will do what best works for them. Next, please. Evaluation, comparing the measurements against performance, and the big question, were your goals achieved? That is the big question always. Were your goals achieved? I wonder if I want to talk about tracking. Okay, next, okay. I'd like for them to answer these questions. So can you go back to 1, 2, 3, and 4? Yes, okay. Can you guys answer? I know you don't have this one in the poll yet because it goes a little bit further, Caesar. So can you guys answer these questions, please, in the chat for me? 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're gonna. Who should be the one developing the goals? Employees must have the blank to reach their goals. 3, who is responsible for achieving desired results? And 4, who needs coaching? Just add them in the chat for us, please.
And I'll definitely download this, and then, yeah, we can definitely go over, and if you want to give them feedback on it.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks, Valerie. Oh, and just a quick note before we close out today, we're going to ask if everyone could turn on their cameras at the end so that we can take a quick picture of all of us completing the course at the end. So just letting you know ahead. Thanks, Val.
That's great.
Thanks, Willie. Thanks, George. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Anthony. Thank you, guys. Okay. Who should help develop the goals? Folks have D. Good. All right, let's go to the responses for this one. You'll skip 2. Yes, awesome. D. Tools. Who's responsible for achieving the results? The employee. And who needs coaching? Nice. Everybody's aligned with these. Okay. We're going to give some words to the wise. You see these? It is much more difficult to measure non-performance. We saw this one earlier than it is to measure performance. And Winston Churchill says, however beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results, right? Evaluation, assessment. And last slide. Okay. So improving your performance management skills is just the beginning, right? It takes practice, practice, practice to manage performance. And every time you have a new employee, you may have to tweak how you manage their performance. There's no cookie cutter for each individual staff that you're going to manage. All right. Ralph Emerson, our chief want is someone who will inspire us to be what we know we could be. All right, so we all have it in us to be great managers, to manage your staff, to motivate your staff, and ultimately to reach your goals. All right, so for performance management, that's what we have. Julio, we see you. Cesar, we see you. So the question that we have for each one of you, and we're gonna hopefully get an answer for everyone. Can you first put on your cameras for us? Julio, give us a view where we can see all participants, please. Gallery view.
Gallery view is there.
We're up on gallery view.
Does everybody see everybody?
I'm seeing folks. I'm seeing everyone. Thank you, guys.
Good.
Once we get some cameras on Julio, you're going to take some screenshots for us, please. And then we'll be able to send it back to you all so you see how wonderful you did. So this is the last of how many weeks, guys? 6 weeks? 6 long weeks. Give us some feedback. Tell us, throw out to us how were your 6 weeks? We're gonna send you a separate evaluation, but we're just having a quick conversation. How was your 6 weeks?
I enjoyed it.
Good, Sharon.
Yeah,
Good.
I enjoyed it.
Good. Good. Anyone else?
It was
long.
Good.
They were long 6 weeks.
But it was good. I learned some things.
Good. Good. Guess what? I sat there. I had to do it. You got to do it too. You learn some things. You bring some things that was in the back. You bring it to the front. You already knew it, right? But sometimes it's just to revisit some of the concepts and the things that you will implement. You'll continue to use. Is there a hand? I saw a hand up. Somebody was trying to ask. No. Anybody else? How was your 6 weeks new manager boot camp experience?
I wonder who, so does anybody remember like who came to all of them, or did anybody miss one or two? Valerie.
Oh, no, because I thought I was starting at first, but I missed a week or something.
Oh, okay. Okay. Is there anybody that had sat through every class? Okay. We got to give you an all-star attendance record, Mina.
That's
Thank
right, Valerie.
you for that. Thank you. If you had to say to somebody, take the class because, what would you say?
Sometimes you don't know what's inside you until you start discussing with people and just sharing ideas. So I think a lot of the sessions that we had throughout the classes were very good to just interact and know people and just get different ideas. I think that was helpful for me, at least, to just get different ideas and different point of view, because sometimes you're stick to something and then when you hear other ideas, you might take something for yourself. So that was the best part I liked about this whole boot camp.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? So I'm gonna do like a shameless plug, and I'm hoping that some of you that are on here will engage with our team, because you guys have expertise in your area. And we are always looking for people who would share their expertise with other MTA employees, with other interns, with people who are visiting the organization. So you'll hear from Janice McKenzie begging you, hey, Alonzo, can you come and talk to a group of people for me and tell them about the wonderful work that you do? Hey, George, can you come and sit in this meeting with young people who want to join the MTA and they just know trains and buses, they don't know anything else. And if you could share some of the work that you do. So I'm always begging, you know, I don't have a problem with asking for support from my colleagues. But I can talk about my own experience is working at the organization, in New York City Transit, leaving the organization and then coming back, because the grass was not greener on the other side, right? So I can talk to that, right? I can talk to being here and maybe things not being ideal or how I expected it to be, leaving and finding myself in a worse situation, and then coming back and saying, okay, this is it, right? This, I can manage this, right? And I think for all of you as managers, what your staff will be looking to you for is guidance. We know they maybe not for you to be their role model, but they are looking at you and saying, this is the way he or she does it, and they do a good job at it. And that's what they're looking for, right? People love to be proud of the area that they sit in and proud of the work that they do. So we are hoping that you all continue as very proud managers across the organization and will be leading proud staff. Okay, Caesar, can we ask those who have their cameras to please turn them on for us? We're going to take one group picture and then send it out to you all and send it to our leadership and say, hey, this is the next group of our managers.
I'm asking to start video.
Yes,
please.
Dawn, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Caesar, let us know, count us down to when you're gonna take the picture, please.
All right, let me just wait until if Brittany shows up. I'm not sure if she's there.
She may not have, I don't know if she has a camera.
Camera's not working for some reason.
It's not working,
Oh,
okay.
All right.
And then for those who we don't have pictures, we have their names, and that's fine. We'll send it. We'll still be able to send it out.
All right.
Okay, guys, best smiles for us.
In 3, 2, 1. Okay. One more?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, hold on 1 second. Come on, get out of here.
Got it?
No, one more, 1 second.
Okay, he's a bad camera guy.
3, 2, 1. All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We were hoping that Patrick Smith would hop on the call and just give some motivating words. He didn't do that for us today, but we can motivate ourselves. I can say to you that I think I've taught 2 classes with you guys so far, and it was an absolute pleasure. Again, I will be reaching out to you so that you guys can come and say hi to some of our new employees and or our new interns, and just share with them the wonderful work that you all continue to do. So congratulations to every one of you, and we will see you in your new whatever you have going on, okay?
That's right.
Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great week.
It was a pleasure, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.